The Zurich Classic is supposed to be about team golf, about pairings and partnerships and two-man celebrations. But this week, all anyone can talk about is the man who isn't even there. Scottie Scheffler, the world number one, the two-time Masters champion, the man who just finished runner-up in back-to-back weeks at golf's biggest events. He is not in New Orleans. He is at home, with his wife and his two young sons, taking a break from the game that has consumed his life. But that hasn't stopped people from talking about him. Because before he left, Scheffler did something that has the entire golf world buzzing. Something that happened at the Masters. Something caught on camera. And now, the quietest man in golf is the loudest story of the week. This is Golfio. For more coverage in golf, subscribe and hit the notification bell. The video spread like wildfire. It was Friday morning at the Masters, and someone had captured Scottie Scheffler doing something that no one expected. He was walking to the driving range. Nothing unusual about that, but in his hands, he was carrying 3 sandwiches. Not 1, 3. The 4-time major champion, the man who had just shot an opening round 70 at Augusta National, was walking toward his practice session like a man heading to a picnic. Brooks Koepka and his caddy, Ricky Elliott, were stopped in their tracks. They watched Scheffler saunter past, arms full of what looked like breakfast, and they could not help but laugh. The video went viral almost immediately. Golf Digest called it the most relatable moment of the Masters so far. Fans loved it. Here was the best player in the world. A man who is known for his intensity and his focus, looking like any one of us grabbing a quick bite before a long day. But here's the thing about that video. It was not just funny, it was revealing. Because the Scottie Scheffler who walked to the range with 3 sandwiches is not the same Scottie Scheffler who sat in the press conference room an hour later. That Scottie Scheffler was someone else entirely. That Scottie Scheffler was angry. The contrast could not have been more stark. On the range, relaxed and relatable. In the press room, sharp and dismissive. And both versions of Scheffler have become part of the story that has everyone talking. Because what happened at the Masters did not stay at the Masters. It followed Scheffler to the RBC Heritage, where he lost in a heartbreaking playoff to Matt Fitzpatrick. And it followed him to the Zurich Classic, where he is not even playing. The sandwiches, the snap, the silence, 3 moments, 1 player, and a golf world that cannot stop talking about him. Let me take you back to that press conference. It was the Saturday of the Masters. Scheffler had just shot a bogey-free 7 under 65, one of the best rounds of his career at Augusta National. He was storming back into contention, climbing the leaderboard, putting himself in position to win his 3rd green jacket. The reporters gathered around him, expecting the usual Scheffler. Calm, measured, thoughtful. That is not what they got. The first question came from Jason Sobel of SiriusXM. "You shot 65 today?" Sobel asked. What did that round feel like it could have or should have been? Scheffler's response was immediate and cutting. "That's just a terrible question." Next question," he said, his voice flat, his expression cold. The room went silent. Another voice muttered, "Awful." Scheffler moved on. The exchange lasted maybe 10 seconds, but those 10 seconds have been replayed millions of times. Some defended Scheffler. They argued that asking a player who just shot 7 under on a major championship course what it should have been is tone deaf. It implies the round was disappointing when it was anything but. Others criticized him. They said professional athletes are expected to handle media scrutiny gracefully, even after strong rounds. That the world number one should be above snapping at reporters. But here is what those critics missed. Scheffler had just played the round of his life. He had climbed back into contention. And instead of asking about that, about his iron play, about his putting, about what he was feeling, the reporter asked him to quantify his disappointment, to put a number on what he had left out there, to focus on what went wrong instead of what went right. Scheffler later softened. When a follow-up question was posed about what allowed him to go low compared to previous days, he provided a detailed hole-by-hole breakdown. He talked about sharp iron shots, multiple birdie opportunities on the front 9, and near misses on the back 9 due to subtle breaks and gusts of wind. He admitted finally that his round maybe wasn't that bad, but the damage was done. The clip had gone viral, and the narrative had been set. Scottie Scheffler, the calmest man in golf, had snapped, and the golf world has been talking about it ever since. To understand why Scheffler's reaction was so surprising, you have to understand who he is. Scottie Scheffler is not supposed to be the angry one. He is supposed to be the calm one. The one who shrugs off bad shots and bad rounds. The one who talks about perspective and family and not letting golf define him. Just weeks before the Masters, Scheffler gave an interview that revealed his entire philosophy. Most of the time in golf, you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed at the end of the week, just because there's only one winner, and there's a lot more losers than that, he said. He added, "If I let my bad golf define me, I'd be a pretty miserable person. If I let my good golf define me, then I'd walk around pretty arrogant all the time, and I wouldn't be very nice to people because I think I'm hot stuff, because I won a few golf tournaments." That is the Scheffler the world knows. Humble, grounded, self-aware. But the Scheffler who snapped at the reporter was different. That Scheffler was tired. He was stressed. He was dealing with something that had nothing to do with golf. His wife, Meredith, had given birth to their second son just 2 weeks before the Masters. 2 weeks. That is nothing. That is no sleep. That is no routine. That is a household turned upside down. "My wife is a warrior," Scheffler said on Friday, praising Meredith for bringing both children to Augusta. Watching Meredith go through that is just crazy. I don't even know how to describe it. 2 days later, he was snapping at reporters. The connection is not complicated. The man was exhausted. He was running on fumes and adrenaline. He had just played the best round of his major championship career, and someone asked him to focus on what he had left out there. Of course he snapped. Anyone would have. But Scheffler is not anyone. He is the world number one, and the world number one is not supposed to have bad days. That is the impossible standard he lives under. And that, perhaps more than anything else, is the real story of his Zurich Classic absence. He is not just resting his body. He is resting his mind. He is giving himself permission to be human.
So, here we are. The Zurich Classic is underway. Brooks Koepka and Shane Lowry are chasing the lead. Matt Fitzpatrick is playing with his brother Alex, fresh off his victory over Scheffler at the RBC Heritage. But the story everyone is talking about is the man who isn't there. Scheffler's decision to skip the Zurich Classic was announced weeks ago. The reason was simple. He wanted to spend time with his family after the birth of his second son. That is it. No drama, no controversy. Just a man choosing his wife and his children over another week on the road. But in the context of everything that has happened, that decision feels different. It feels like a statement. Scheffler has had a strange season. He won his first event of the year at the American Express in January. Since then, he has been runner-up at the Masters and runner-up at the RBC Heritage. He has played brilliant golf, but he has not won. And the narrative around him has started to shift. Is he pressing? Is he tired? Is the pressure of being number one finally getting to him? Scheffler himself has pushed back against that narrative. In an interview before the Masters, he was asked about defending his title. He dismissed the question with characteristic humility. "Defending can always be difficult, but that's mostly just the odds of winning a tournament in back-to-back years," he said. "That's just extremely challenging, especially when you look at these major championships. But the questions keep coming, and the answers keep getting shorter." The man who once gave long, thoughtful responses now seems to be measuring every word. The man who once smiled through every press conference now seems to be gritting his teeth. The sandwiches on the range were funny, the snap at the reporter was not, and the absence from the Zurich Classic is, for many, confirmation that something is off. But is it? Or is it just a man taking a break? The answer depends on who you ask, and that is why everyone is still talking. So what is the truth about Scottie Scheffler's Zurich Classic moment? What actually happened, and why is everyone still talking about it? Let me break down 3 possibilities. Possibility 1, the sandwiches were the moment. This is the fun version of the story. Scheffler walking to the range with 3 sandwiches, stopping Brooks Koepka in his tracks, making everyone laugh. That video is why people love Scheffler. It shows his humanity, his relatability, the fact that the best player in the world is just a guy who gets hungry in the morning. If this is the moment everyone is talking about, then the story is wholesome. It is a celebration of a champion who does not take himself too seriously. And it is a reminder that golf, at its best, is fun. Possibility 2, the snap was the moment. This is the dramatic version of the story. Scheffler, exhausted and stressed, snapping at a reporter who asked a poorly worded question. The video went viral for a reason. It was unexpected. It was uncomfortable. It showed a side of Scheffler that the public rarely sees. If this is the moment everyone is talking about, then the story is about pressure, about scrutiny, about the toll that being number one takes on a person. And it is a warning that even the calmest among us have limits. Possibility 3, the absence is the moment. This is the quiet version of the story. Scheffler choosing to skip the Zurich Classic to be with his family. In a sport where players are expected to play every week, to chase every dollar, to grind until they break, Scheffler did something radical. He rested. He prioritized his wife and his children. He said no. If this is the moment everyone is talking about, then the story is about balance, about perspective, about a man who understands that golf is just golf. And that is exactly what he said before the Masters. "If I let my bad golf define me, I'd be a pretty miserable person." My final take is this: the real Scottie Scheffler moment is not one thing, it's all three. The sandwiches show his humanity, the snap shows his stress, the absence shows his wisdom, and together they paint a picture of a man who is trying to navigate an impossible situation. The best player in the world, the father of 2 young children, the target of every reporter's question. He's not perfect. He loses his cool. He takes breaks. He carries 3 sandwiches to the range. And that is exactly why everyone is talking about him. This is Golfio. If you made it to the end of this video, you care about the real stories behind the game. Subscribe to this channel for more deep dives into the moments that matter. And leave a comment below. Which Scheffler moment is your favorite? The sandwiches, the snap, or the absence? I'll see you in the next video. For more coverage in golf, subscribe and hit the notification bell.